It's Cara. So I wanted to show everybody a really nice cheat meal. And I would call this a cheat because what we're making is homemade veggie meat using vital wheat gluten, which is a wheat, and excessive amounts of it would lead to some bloating. However, it's much better than doing processed store-bought veggie meat, and it's especially great for those who have transitioning family members. Okay, so I'm using this vital wheat gluten flour. You don't have to, this is a brand found here in Atlanta, but there's also, I think it's Bob's Red's Mill. You can find this stuff almost at any grocery store though. Just make sure it says vital wheat gluten because there's another form of it that's not exactly the same. I want you guys to see how quickly this comes together. I've got a ton of seasonings and stuff over here. You don't necessarily have to have all of that, but you know, it's nice. It adds to the flavor. If yours comes out less flavorful, you're gonna cook it twice anyway, so it's totally fine. Basically, the basics of it is just this vital wheat gluten flour and some liquid of some kind, okay? So I am going to start by measuring 3 cups of liquid into my measuring cup. Now, making this, it's also called seitan. Some people pronounce it seitan. I can't do that. So the seitan, you'll find tons of recipes and a lot of the veggie meat in the store. This is what it has in it. This is what gives it that texture that people like so much. It also freezes very well. I'm going to show you guys the easiest method that I've ever found because you can really mess this up. A lot of the methods call for stovetop. I'm putting 3 cups in the bowl. That method is super tricky, and I find that it really only works well if you're using cheesecloth to hold its shape. Otherwise, it comes out like really like a rubber ball. But even if that does happen to you, y'all, it may seem a little strange, but there's nothing wrong with it, okay? You can still just take it and pulse it in your food processor and use it like you would ground beef. So you still wouldn't need to throw it away, all right? This is also much cheaper. Now this container right here was $3.91. It's $2.59 a pound, and it makes a lot. It makes a lot. So big portions there. So I'm measuring this really just for you guys. I don't normally do that because different brands of vital wheat gluten will give you different consistencies and textures and make it hard for you to get the right texture in here in your bowl. And that's what you need. You need to get that texture right so that when you bake it, it comes out holding together properly. And believe me, even after years of making this, I really messed up a lot of, I really messed up a lot of mine just by not having the right consistency before I baked it. And that's my preferred method, by the way. I've got a pan of hot water in the oven right now that it's just sitting in water. I'm warming it up because my concentrated vegetable broth mixes in better that way. If you're using liquid vegetable broth or homemade stock, you don't need that step at all. I really don't even need it. It's just something that I did today. So this is smoked paprika, and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of this to my 3 cups. All right. Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. Just 1 teaspoon because my water, I'm going to have some seasoning in there too. And then I'm going to add about an 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne. That's not enough to really make it spicy, but gives us some flavor. And then this is fennel. So fennel and sage together will give you like a sausage type flavor. So I'm going to try maybe a 1/2 teaspoon of the fennel. Most of the time mine ends up under seasoned because I'm scared that I'm going to over season it. With the onion powder though, I'm going in. I want all that flavor. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of onion powder in here. You can season this with anything, you guys. You could look up like taco style seasoning, right, and put that in. So I'm going to do a teaspoon of cumin, full teaspoon. You could do chili powder, things like that. Here is some an herb called savory. I'm just going to sprinkle that in. I always like to have mine super herby. All right, and then next I'm going to add about a teaspoon of sage. This is the sage that I use is whole sage like this. This is what I prefer. I would never use the powder. I feel like it's too hard to control the flavor with the powder. You can accidentally add too much and it overpowers everything. Not good. So I'm gonna put in a teaspoon of ginger. I might have to estimate this. I can't get my measure in there. There. Okay. You know, anybody who's been following me for a while, I don't use garlic, onion powder, ginger powder together. That makes your garlic powder, and it's much less acidic. This is nutritional yeast. I don't use a lot of this at all either. I haven't finished all of my research on it, but I've just heard conflicting things, and with anything like that I try to steer clear from. But this adds nicely to the texture, so I'm putting that in here. You can even add a little garbanzo bean flour in here, and that gives it a different texture, but I'm not experimenting today at all. I used to do that in the past because there's another baking method where you put one pan inside of another pan and you have water in the lower pan. You cover up the gluten in the pan and it basically steams. Different texture. Everything you do gives it a slightly different texture than what it had before. So here's my bowl. My bowl with all my spices and stuff in there, right? Now at this point you could even taste it, you know. It's not meat, okay? You're not gonna get sick. You could taste it for your spice level if you wanted to and then decide if you wanted more or less or something. I'm just gonna roll with this. I just know that by itself, the flour is you know, incredibly bland, so it needs a hit of something. All right, so, and I have a surprise here. This stuff right here, this is oven roasted mushrooms. I think I'm gonna add just one more teaspoon of onion powder, just for good measure, because I do have 3 cups of flour in there. All right, now I decided to add the wild mushrooms roasted because there's a brand of lunch meat at the farmer's market, at Whole Foods, that I really love. It's called wild mushroom something. It is thebomb.com. So I'm like, maybe I can do that. So I've never done this before, but I think I'm gonna add it right after I think I'm gonna knead it in after I get my liquid in there, or as I add the liquid. So now here is some coconut aminos. Look at that. I'll just put a few in there right now. This is what you if you don't have this, guys, you could use Bragg's. You know, Bragg's is what I would prefer to use if it didn't have the soy in it, you know. But because this is a little bit sweeter than I'd like, but I'm gonna do about a 1/3 cup of this in here. All right, now if you end up with too much liquid, this is 2.5 cups of water and a 1/3 cup of that. You can just add more of your Vital Wheat gluten. It's really not a big deal. Let me go get this water out of the oven, and I'll show you guys what what it looks like when it goes into the pan. Easy, 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 y'all. Somebody time it, because I promise you this doesn't take long at all. It's really the baking process that takes the longest, okay? I'm just gonna get our water out. I'm splashing too much here. So I think I'm gonna pour off some of this water. There we go. All right, I should have used a deeper pan. Okay. So, watch this, you guys. Now you see what this flour looks like now, right? Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna put these mushrooms in now. Yep. Because it can be hard once it gets all stuck together to get something else to incorporate. And I know this will blend right on in here like this. All right. Now this is together. I'm gonna take, this is the vegetable broth that I personally like. It's got a couple things in it that I don't eat on a normal basis, but I'm not gonna stress it. Another thing is, you can also reuse this broth, y'all. This broth should be used to store your veggie meat in once it's done. And you could also reuse it if you needed to make another pan. You could put it in the freezer. There's no reason to throw it out, okay? So, I'm just adding that in, stirring it in with my water to get it to kind of to melt down some. But it doesn't really matter because it'll cook off in the oven anyway. But this particular broth needs hot water to be able to do that, okay? All right, so that's that. Now all we got to do, y'all, is add this liquid in here, and we're done. Tons of different recipes with different ingredients, but this is what I'm choosing today. So let's see if I have enough water, because I normally don't measure this. As you're stirring it up, and I might have too much water. As you're stirring it, go ahead and, as you're pouring that in, give it a stir, and it starts coming together. Okay, no, I do need that water. All right. Yep. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump the rest of this in, take my chances, because I can always add a little more flour. All right. So far coming with the spoon is working. However, to get this into good form, guys, you're gonna have to get a little dirty. Set this to the side. I have one client that was like, no, not my nails. No, she did not want to do it, y'all. All right, you're trying to get it to knead into somewhat of a ball. I'm noticing that because of these mushrooms, it's a little wet. I would not suggest putting raw mushrooms in here at all, because it will add to your water content, okay? All right, some of my mushrooms are coming out, but I'm just folding them back in there. And I think I'm gonna add like a touch more flour, just to absorb a little bit more moisture. I'm gonna sprinkle that on there. Now, I mentioned the cheesecloth. Now that I'm looking at this, I want it, and I don't have it handy, so I'm gonna have to walk away from the camera again and go get it. But I think this has the potential to be a really good one. So I think I wanna, I don't know, it's doing better now. So it's coming together, okay? Some mushrooms are falling off, leaving the party, but that's okay. Press down, and you can let it rest for a little bit first. I honestly don't think it really matters. Some people will disagree. Again, it just depends on texture. The only reason why I'm even still kneading this right now, I don't want you guys to think this is hard, is because I added that little bit of extra flour, and because I added these mushrooms. And I'm trying to kind of get them all in there. So a ton of them here trying to leave. All right, so I really don't think it would have mattered when I added them. I've never done that before, added something extra after the fact. However, if I wrap this in the cheesecloth, which is like really thin, and then tie it in a knot, I know that it will hold the shape better. Okay, I have a feeling my family is not going to be thrilled that I put these mushrooms in here, but they're pretty used to eating them and everything by now, so they'll probably be all right. Okay, I'm going to check for this is fine right here, okay? I'm going to check for my cheesecloth and see if I have it handy. I might be out, and if I'm out, I'll just skip it, take my chances, and not worry about it. Oh, here it is. Okay, good stuff. Cheesecloth right here. That's what it's called. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, very easy to find these days now at most grocers. It's very, very thin like this. So you can wrap things in it. You can use this and put a big bundle of herbs in it and add it to your soup. Anything that you want to be able to strain out quickly later. So I'm going to pull this apart just so that I can make it a little bit bigger. All right, and then all I have to do is transfer my loaf directly onto the cheesecloth. Okay, and just wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it all the way around like that, and then I'm just going to tie each end. This will last a long time, y'all. I can dice it up, put it in stir fries, It'll hold up in a soup really nicely. Look at that. Okay. If you don't have the cheesecloth, please don't let that hold you back. Oh, I want to make it just like hers. I usually don't do this. I put it directly in as is. One advantage of this, if you see some and you can grab it, is that it'll cook and it'll hold this exact shape because it can't stretch outside of it. Okay. So now I take this and I put it right here in my pan of broth, which I now see I don't have enough of, so I'm going to add a little bit more water to this. Okay, because ideally you want to cover that. So I got a better solution. And I appreciate you guys bearing with me through this, but I got a better solution. I'm going to put it in a pan that's higher on the sides. I usually use a loaf pan like this, but because I already had to switch this, because of those mushrooms, I'm just making a couple of adjustments on the fly, okay? So, let me now pour this over that. Now, if you don't put enough broth in here, it will kind of dry it out a little bit, okay? And you can also turn it while it's cooking. It's so hard to mess this up, y'all. It really is. And even if you mess it up, you can still use it, like I said. So now, with this new pan, it's coming up much higher on the sides, and I may not even need to add more water. What I usually do, and the reason why I'm able to use a longer pan, is I stretch it out kind of flat in shape. And so it's longer and flatter, like maybe an inch, versus this is super big. So, but for this one, I think what I'm gonna do is not add any more water this time and just put it on for 20 minutes and then turn it so that both sides get that moisture in there, okay? And it doesn't dry out. This is really it. I'm gonna put this in the oven for roughly 20 minutes or so. And then I'm gonna turn it over and cook it maybe another 20 minutes or so, and then I'm going to check it and see. So usually in about 45 minutes, it will be firm enough to be considered done. And then you could take it and saute it, mix in with whatever you like, okay? So that's pretty much it. This is going in the oven, all right? I'll be back and I'll show you guys when it comes out of the oven. I'll slice it up so you can see what it looks like on the inside, all right? All right, so our homemade veggie meat is done. And what I did to check for it is I pressed down on it and see the level of firmness. So it still gives a little bit, which is going to give me some tenderness. I actually ended up cooking it for about an hour, 20 minutes. Then I flipped it, then 20 minutes, and I flipped it again and did about 15 minutes using tongs, of course, because this is really hot. And what I'm going to do is cut. Don't worry if you don't have kitchen shears, just use something else, okay? I'm going to cut this open to remove this, because it could still, you know, even go in the broth longer. If you do this and when you check it, the texture is not all the way done, you know, it's okay. As long as it's been in there a while, it's still going to hold its shape a little bit better. Now I'm looking at it thinking, maybe I put too many mushrooms in there. But again, like I said, y'all, you can't really go wrong with it. All right. I'm going to do this to get, oh, look at that. This is just when you thought you didn't have any reason to keep those steak knives. And now here you go with this. I'm going to cut a slice and check the texture and show it to y'all so that you can see. So you still cook it again. And this could actually cook, I think I'm going to cook this just a little bit longer. But I want you to see what this looks like on the inside. Okay? It cooks up just like meat, y'all. You can shred it, add it to things, different things like that. So This right here, to me, I would call it kind of like a little on the gummy side. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that back in the oven for maybe another 15 minutes or so, and then it'll be done. And then now you could slice this, you could bread it and pan fry it. You could slice it just like this and put it in a gravy, make gravy to go with it, endless, just like you would use meat. And then I'm gonna enjoy my dinner tonight, which is quinoa with a side of sauteed zucchini and green tomato. Yummy, yummy. Used up what I had. I got some wild mushrooms in there, red bell pepper, kale, all that kind of stuff that I already had on hand. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. This is a great, thing to experiment on. Tons of recipes out there, but it's always helpful to see a video so you know what that texture should look like going in. I actually could have had it a little drier now, I'm seeing that, but it really doesn't matter. If I cook it a little bit longer, it'll get it right where it needs to be. So hope this was helpful, and enjoy. All right, bye.